Brings us to a nice subject, which is talked about in Advaita also much. Free will. Is that because we cannot choose ourselves to do that? What is there free will for the individual, or is this just a logical outcome of everything that has happened before?
Well, we are very bad in understanding how we work. The mind experiences the outcome, but it doesn't experience all the neurological processes.
Yeah.
That when we make a decision, it's the outcome of all kinds of processes that we do not experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we do not experience that because if we would experience that, that would create an overload of that we would not be able to handle all the technical details of how we make.
Yeah.
So what is happening is that we only experience the outcome. For example, I would like some tea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that can be a decision. And it feels like free will, but it only feels like free will because we do not experience all the processes that gave rise to that decision.
Yeah.
So for every decision we make is the outcome of a lot of processes. And well, in essence, they are neurological processes. And the human being is a decision-making machine.
And who makes the decisions?
The organism, and in particular the brain.
Yeah.
And well, there's a very odd thing happening because the brain creates what is called a model of the self in relationship to the world. So the brain creates a virtual world in which there's a me, there's a world. And the brain feels that there's a me that is making the decisions. And for some people they can also point out that there would be a little me somewhere in the skull. It feels that there's a little Patrick or Roland or whatever somewhere in here. Yeah. But when you open the skull, you only see neurons. You only see a lot of brain mass.
Yeah.
So the brain creates that model of the me in relationship to the world, and that's a helpful model to make decisions. But the decisions are made in the brain, and in essence, decision making is just physical processes. It's electrochemical reactions that are working in the brain, that creating the brain activity.
Yeah. Is that what we call ego? That mechanism? Is that?
Yes, the ego is the me part of the model that the brain creates of the me in relationship to the world.
Yeah. And is this helpful for us?
Yes, of course.
We need it.
Yes, of course we need it, because if we would not need it, it would not have been created, because evolution, everything that evolution is doing is useful.
So all those teachers who tell me I have to get rid of my ego, you say bullshit. No, ego cannot.
Well, first of all, I think most of these teachers have a very big ego. Because it's good for your ego if you are in front of a lot of people who admire you and say, well, it's namaste, it's very good. So I suspect that many teachers, many Advaita teachers have a very large ego.
And they tell me to get rid of my ego.
Yes, it's very weird, because everything is a development of natural mechanisms, of the way that the natural laws have worked out. So the ego is also an expression of how the natural laws have played out.
Yeah.
And we need it. Well, if you want to see how enlightened somebody is, you can bring a tiger at satsang. And if the teacher does not experience any
Fear.
duality between himself and the tiger, well, then it will make no difference whether the tiger is hungry or not.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But I believe it's of course, spiritual teachers tell some basic truth, but it's also very important not to ignore how our organisms came into being.
Yeah.
And I feel very much inspired by evolution, who says that evolutionary theories that give more information about why things are the way they are.
Yeah. In Advaita circles, we also like to talk about the world being an illusion. It's not real. It's just a dream. When you are in deep sleep, then you are in your natural state. Do you agree with people who say that?
And when you are, it's a dreamless sleep.
Yeah, in the deep sleep. Then you are awake. In deep sleep, you are awake, and now we are dreaming. We are dreaming this world.
Well, you can say two things about that. First of all, in deep sleep, there's also a lot of brain activity, and well, in deep sleep, there's also nobody who can experience anything. I don't buy that theory, because you can also say, well, you are your true self before you were born, and you will be your true self after you die.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing, that before you were born there was nobody to experience anything, and after you will die there's also nobody who experiences anything. And there's also one thing one can learn from that. If one really wants to lose one's ego, one only has to have some patience. So one does not have to go to cruise. One does not even have to watch YouTube videos. One only has to have some patience. That at some point all our atoms will dissolve.
Yeah.
Our ego will not be there anymore, because the brain will not be able to generate the model of the self in relationship to the environment.
Yeah.
Our atoms will spread out and they will make new forms.
Yeah. And nothing is lost.
No, nothing is lost. Well, what is important is not your ego. What's important are your atoms. And your atoms will survive anything.
Even an atomic war.
Yes, yes. Unless you are totally in the center. But in essence, in fact, the quarks, what are the elementary particles within the atom, they can even survive a nuclear explosion. When you are in the middle of a nuclear explosion, they will survive, and they will even they will last as long as the universe will last. So the ego is a creation of the brain, and it's the model of the self in relationship to the environment is a virtual model. It's a virtual model. So that also means that what's important is not the ego. What's important are the atoms, and the atoms will survive.
Yeah, that's reassuring. And how come, Roland, that we are still so busy with mourning when the form dies, or wanting the form to live as long as it does? Do you have an explanation for that? Is that also again?
Yes, because when we when there's an organism, the organism is motivated to live as long as possible. You can also see that by simple organisms, also organisms that do not think. They are also, every organism is motivated by two things. So one thing is to live as long as possible, and the other thing is to procreate.
Yeah.
If an organism doesn't want to procreate, then it will die out.
Yeah.
So
it's a natural law.
Yeah, if organisms that are not motivated to procreate will die out. It's as simple as that. And you have to live at least as long to be able to procreate and to raise the kids, if it's necessary.
Are those two motivations influencing all our actions in daily life? Procreation, survival?
Well, these are the most important motivations.
Yeah. What can be other motivations to have in life? Bringing truth and liberation?
Yes, well, I think that personally I'm fascinated by knowing what is true.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not see how this helps my my survival, and it also doesn't help with procreation. So it's just some kind of longing to know the truth.
There's a friend of us, Paul Smith. You were in the movie All About Nothing with him, who says everything is sexual selection, even doing these kind of interviews. It's presenting yourself as a very wise and lovable guy.
Well, I don't know if I...
It could be.
It could be. I don't know. It may also be different for different people. Yes, well, that can be his opinion. I think there's a lot of truth in his opinion, because also when you look, for example, at artists, famous artists always had a lot of lovers.
Yeah.
And you also see with birds that they are showing off with colors, with dance. And especially male animals of all kinds of species tend to show off with how knowledgeable, how good they are. Animals tend to fight with other animals just to show off how strong they are.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of truth in that opinion.
Yeah.
I would not go so far as that for human beings the only motivation is survival and procreation. There can also be something like wanting to create a better world, or wanting to know the truth, or that there are also some other motivations, but it's a very important part.
Yeah. And is there such thing as enlightenment, Roland? That's what all we spiritual searchers are looking for. We want to become enlightened.
Well, the short answer is no. I don't believe in it. I've believed in it for quite a long time. I've been a follower of spiritual teachers who said they were enlightened. Well, not to fall in love with a person, but to fall in love with everything there is.
The world, yeah.
Yes. And it's quite likely that many spiritual teachers have had that experience. But these experiences come and go. And everyone, also all the listeners, have experienced moments in which they experienced oneness. It's also quite simple. For example, if you there's also the flow. If you are making a painting, or if you're making dancing or music, then you also do not experience the ego anymore.
Yeah.
The young people who are going at a dance party do not experience the ego anymore.
Oneness.
So they experience oneness. So
Yeah.
it's not something that is just for a few teachers. Everybody experiences oneness at different points.
Yeah. It
It just so happens that these teachers can say a lot of great things about it. And not everybody can put it in beautiful words.
Yeah.
Not everybody can sit before a lot of people and to explain it.
Yeah.
So we all have had our points of enlightenment sometimes, but everybody also has his points of experience, the ego. There's, if you go at the internet and if you look at the private lives of some teachers, you certainly get the expression that they also experience ego, and it's not that these people are wholly or totally different than other people. It's just that they have a way of giving, explaining the whole thing into very nice words.
So there's no such thing as permanent enlightenment, permanent egolessness.
No.
No.
No, it's very dangerous to suggest that there is.
If I meditate enough, if I meditate for 10 years on a mountain, then my ego will completely dissolve and I'm enlightened.
No. And it's very dangerous to suggest that there is, because some gurus who have claimed permanent enlightenment have also created a lot of scandals.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of reasons to suspect that especially those teachers who claim permanent enlightenment have a very big ego. It can also be a way to get followers.
Yeah.
If you say, I'm permanent enlightened, and if you also have some charisma, then you will get followers.
Yeah.
Also a good website is necessary, a good public relations. You must be able to talk in a nice sounding way. You must have a nice voice. Your looks must be okay.
Yeah.
There must be all kind. But the whole, if somebody says, well, that I am in a way more spiritual advanced than you, you certainly can, then the person who is saying that has a very, very, very big ego.
Okay.
And it's simply a sales trick to say, I'm permanent enlightened, and if you do what I tell you to do, you may become permanent enlightened also.
Yeah.
Then you get power over people. There's a movie called Kumare in which that process is, in which you can see how this process works.
Yeah.
So don't. If you just remember one thing from this video, don't trust anybody who say that he's permanent enlightened.
Okay. One last thing I want to ask you, a phrase I hear a lot in spiritual circles, also in non-duality and Advaita circles, is everything is love, all the other things are a lie. So this is all love, and that is what we are. We haven't heard the word love out of your mouth. Well,
no, because everything, most of the times when somebody uses that word, it is suspect. Well, what is meant by everything is love is that everything that there is accepted without conditions by the universe, otherwise it would not be there.
Yeah.
If there is a disaster somewhere, then that disaster is accepted by the universe, otherwise it would not be there.
Yeah.
But the word love is used in but it does not have to mean that everything is rosy.
Yeah.
So the word love gives some connections to
Romance.
to rosy feelings. But well, there's a lot of bad things happening at the world. There are a lot of diseases. There are people in hospitals. There are people freezing. There are all kinds of. There are animals suffering in intensive farming. Well, you cannot say that the suffering of all these animals and of people in bad situations is just love. That I do not use the word love so often because it gives some rosy feelings to things that are not rosy at all.
Yeah. Maybe if we change the word love into being, so everything comes out of being, everything is accepted by being.
Yes, well, you can say that everything is an expression of the natural laws.
Yeah.
So instead of saying love, which has some connection with roses and that, you just say everything is an expression of natural laws. But that just doesn't sound so nice.
No.
If someone wants to have followers,
They have to.
it would be much better to say everything is an expression of love,
Yeah.
and you are love. But if you say, well, everything is an expression of natural laws, for somehow that just doesn't doesn't give that same.
Yeah.
The same thing, and people want to hear nice things. Well, in Holland we have the magazine Happiness. It's the #1 spiritual magazine in the Netherlands, and well, in the magazine everything is written in a rosy context.
Yeah.
That's of course nice, but in the real world there are all kinds of things happening. There are lovely things happening, but there's also bad things happening. And if you would use a more neutral term, like natural laws or oneness or something, that's better than love, which has some rosy, all these rosy feelings about it.
Yeah. Roland, is there anything else we can learn from the animal kingdom? You watch a lot of movies on TV. I do also. I'm always amazed about how things in like with the ants and the things they build and the big houses they build where the air gets through, and it looks so intelligent to me. And you cannot tell me that little ant that doesn't have that much brain capacity. How come those ants know exactly what to do to make such beautiful things?
Well, they are more in harmony than human beings.
They work together.
And yes, it's just they work together in a very basic and automatic way. And well, the human being is a very strange being because most animals live in a very natural way. And the human being has this very big brain. It seems at some point there was a mutation in apes that caused the brain to grow, to double in size. And with this growing brain came the possibility to use technology, but also the possibility for worrying. We are a bit of an exception in the natural world.
Yeah.
And well, what many people want to do is to turn back the clock of evolution, because they say, well, we have this ego, we have this worrying, we have this thinking, we have this always being in our mind. But for a large part, that's just part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Perhaps it would be better if we would still be the apes. I don't think I would have any problem in being in a nice climate in Africa and being in a natural environment and just doing my thing there. Maybe that's even a lot better than being in a cold country.
With a house with bills.
But it just so happens that we are human beings.
Yeah.
And we cannot turn back the clock of evolution. So I don't think we should try to be like monkeys, because that's impossible. We are in this situation and we should do the best of it, and some relaxing exercises can of course help.
Yeah.
But we should not go so far as to try to turn back the clock of evolution, because that just won't work.
Yeah.
You cannot turn back the clock of all those processes just by saying, well, it should not be that way.
Yeah.
And also nice guru talk does not help either. But what happens is that if people go to satsang, they will feel good for a short while. But then they experience the world with all the sorrows and pain. And they need to go to satsang again to get this good feeling again.
Yeah, true.
And that gives rise to some addiction.
Yeah.
I've also been addicted to spiritual groups in the past. I've been a searcher for many, many, many years.
But didn't find anything.
Well, I did find one thing, and that was well, spiritual teachers tell something, but they then do not tell the whole story.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of wisdom in the work of evolutionary biologists. Mm-hmm. At the moment, I'm very much inspired by movies from National Geographic Wild. Also the work of philosophers like Daniel Dennett or evolutionary biologists. So it would be very, very good for spiritual people to not read the next Advaita book, but to read something about evolution. Because if you read about evolution, you understand exactly why things are the way they are.
Yeah. Look further. Don't stop at Advaita.
Now there's some truths to be found in Advaita. Mm-hmm. But you also have to learn the truth about human nature and how it came to be that way. And if you study evolutionary theories, if you read books about evolution, you understand a lot about how things are the way they are. Also learn a lot about nature. That I think the main thing is that we are in a game. We cannot change that game simply by smooth talk. The best thing we can do is to understand the rules of the game. The rules of the game are the natural laws and the way evolution works. And it helps us to accept it. Yeah. And if it's not possible to accept it, that's okay also, because part of evolution has also programmed us to feel resistance to bad experience. Yeah. So we do not always have to feel good. We do not have to lose the ego that nature has programmed us to
feel frustrated also.
To feel frustrated, to feel bad, to have all kinds of feelings. Yeah.
Thanks for this interview again. When people want to get in touch with you, the English website www.youareoneness.com.
Yes, and it's written as one word. And there's also a lecture on that website that I've given at the Science and Non-Duality Congress some time ago. It's also in English.
Yeah.
So there's also a lot of information on that website.
Also a way to get in touch with you on the website.
Yes, there's also my email address is mentioned at the website, so people can look there.
Yeah, and for our Dutch viewers or listeners, there's also 2 interviews in Dutch on YouTube to be and on iTunes to be found. Thank you very much again. Roland.
Thank you, Patrick.
Sitting here with Jeff Foster. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
You are busy on Twitter lately.
I do tweet occasionally.
Since June, and I got some of your tweets, which I want to talk to you about.
You're not supposed to talk about tweets, you're just supposed to tweet them.
Oh, but I got them on paper here, so
No.
it's real.
Oh no!
No, it's just some things you said about this wonderful thing we're talking about. Awareness and contents of awareness are inseparable. They are intimate. They are in love. So this thing called awareness. Can you talk about it?
Whew.
What is awareness? Is it something that can be grasped or can be talked about? Or
Well, I mean, the best way to answer that question is just to look for yourself now. I mean, you know, just come back to what's obvious. You know, so right now, sounds are happening. You know, sounds are appearing. The sound of this voice and sounds of birds singing and the trees brushing against the window over there. And what you notice is just effortlessly these sounds just appear. You know, like you don't have to do anything for sounds to appear. Like you don't have to do anything. You just notice that the sound of a bird singing, it just appears without effort. You know, just spontaneously. But then what happens, of course, is thought comes in. You know, the mind comes in, and it says I am hearing. So it creates a division between me and the sound, between the one who hears the sound and the sound. So now you appear to have 2 things. You appear to have the sound of the bird singing and the one who hears the sound of the bird singing. You have an object and a subject. You have the perceived and the perceiver. So you appear to have 2 things. Separation. But actually, in your direct experience of life, you know, in your direct experience of life, before thought comes in, you'll never find 2 things. You know, all you ever find is in a sense one thing, which is the sound of the bird singing, or the sound of this voice, and so it's like thought is always coming in and claiming. It's claiming ownership. It's claiming, you know, that I am here doing. I am doing. I am hearing.
I know which bird is singing right now.
Yeah, and it names the bird and it judges the bird and it goes into the past and the future. But you know, in your direct experience of life, all you'll ever find is that sound, which is beyond words. And actually, even to call it a sound is already a thought. You see. So what is there before thought comes in? So what you could say is that, you know, a sound, something as simple as, you know, the sound of a bird singing, it's not happening to you. It's not appearing for you, or it's not that you are hearing the sound of the bird singing. The sound of the bird singing simply appears. So everything simply appears
and vanishes.
And vanishes, exactly, spontaneously. And then you could ask, well, what does everything appear in? What is the sound of the bird singing appearing in? What is every sight, sound, and smell? Every perception appearing in. So you could say it's This is the problem. This is the problem with talking about awareness, because anything you say about awareness, even to call it awareness, is already just another thought appearing. You know.
So you can't name this thing called life.
No, I mean you call it consciousness, you call it awareness, you call it beingness, you call it life, you call it
God.
Nothing, God, you call it energy, or you don't even speak about it. Maybe you don't even speak about it, but I mean either way you can't name it, because it's not an it. An it is something that comes and goes. An it is a thing, and a thing is a thought. You see.
So every word is wrong.
So we can stop the interview now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Goodbye.
This, you say on your Twitter, today is your whole life. A great statement. Do you mean like you don't know if there's going to be another day, or you mean this day is everything, has everything in it?
Well, it means a lot of things, really. Yeah, it means that this you're not guaranteed tomorrow. I mean, how do you know? How can anyone know what's going to happen? You know, you don't even know if this could be your last hour, your last moment. You don't know. You have no way of knowing. Another way of saying that is, you know, all of life is here. You know, life is this. Life is everything that's appearing, and there's nothing. There's nothing missing from this present appearance. So just before we were talking about awareness, you could talk about it as awareness and content of awareness. So you know, everything, every sight, sound, and smell just kind of comes and goes. What does it come and go in? Well, you call it awareness, call it life, but ultimately you can't talk about it. But then ultimately, you see, and this is what the word non-duality really points to, is that awareness and contents of awareness are not separate. So ultimately, you could say it's life dressing up as the sound of the bird singing, and it's not that the sound of the bird singing is separate from life. It's not that the sound of the bird singing comes and goes in life. It's that life is the sound of the bird singing. You know, the one who hears the sound is the sound. So this is completely beyond comprehension. You know, that's why I said in the previous tweet that
The other tweet, yeah.
The other tweet that so awareness and contents of awareness are inseparable. It's only when thought comes in and it says this is separate from that. So there's me separate from life. There's me separate from the world. So when that's seen to be just an illusory division, that division doesn't actually exist in your direct experience.
But thought always thinks life is happening somewhere else or in the future.
Yeah, well, exactly. Thought says, you know, this is my life, this is your life. Yeah, I have a life, I can lose a life. Well, you know, the life is happening here, but life is also happening out there. Or there may be more life is out there. I need to go out there and find more life.
This is not enough.
This is not enough. Exactly. From the separation, from this illusory separation from life, from the assumption that you are separate from life, comes the experience of lack, the experience that this isn't enough, because there's more out there. There's more life to be found somehow out there, somehow in the future.
It never comes.
It never comes. But it never comes because we're looking for it. It's brilliant. See? So the separation, the moment you have separation, the moment you have someone separate from life, you have a seeker. And the seeker is looking for the end of separation. The seeker thinks that the end of separation is something that they will find one day in the future. So it's brilliant, because in looking for the end of separation, you carry on being a seeker.
Yeah.
You don't have to die. So the seeker looks for the end of the seeker, the end of separation, wholeness. It's our search for wholeness, which paradoxically perpetuates the experience of lack, which we're trying to overcome. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant game that consciousness plays.
Yeah.
You know.
It's still an identity. Being a seeker gives you a sense of identity.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of I'm someone who's looking for something. I am someone who is lacking something. One day I will find what I'm looking for. You know, I am incomplete. One day I will be complete, and it's going to take time. So time comes into the picture. You know, so because you need time to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for something, you need time to find it. So that
it's still procrastination.
Procrastinate. Yeah. Well, it's what happens. The end result of this, you end up missing life, which is always here and now. It's right in front of you. You know, this is fully life. Nothing is missing from this present appearance of life. This is life expressing itself in its fullness. You know, like nothing is hidden. You see, nothing is hidden here. The seeker thinks there's something hidden, thinks there's something missing here. There's some secret
To find.
and one day they'll find it, and they go all around the world asking teachers, asking gurus, what is the secret? Show me the secret. Where is life? Where is the fullness of life? And of course, all the while, there is only the fullness of life, which is being ignored in the seeker's pursuit of the fullness of life. It's brilliant.
There's no golden pot at the end of the rainbow.
No. And, you know, the seeker doesn't want to hear that, you see. That's why a lot of people call this message, the message that I speak about, they say it's a
Fatalistic.
It's fatalistic, it's nihilistic, it's depressing, or it's too simple, you know.
So Jeff, this big thing called the ego.
Yes.
Everybody talks about it in spirituality and books. I have to get rid of my ego, and I have no ego. You have a big ego. You write on your Twitter page, I have no ego. Is this the ultimate claim of the ego? You meet a lot of people who say they don't have an ego?
Well, I mean, that's you know, years ago when I was a really intense, serious spiritual seeker. I mean, that was my goal, was to get rid of the ego, because I used to think that, well, once I get rid of the ego, then there'll be oneness. So it's like, I used to think that something called the ego was blocking oneness, you see. But if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because it would be like the separate wave in the ocean. So a wave in the ocean, and the wave thinks it's separate. It would be like the wave saying that, first of all, I need to get rid of the wave before there can be ocean. First of all, I need to get rid of the wave, then there will be fully ocean. But of course, what the wave isn't seeing is that the wave is the ocean. I mean, the wave is 100% water. So really, there is no separate wave. It's the ocean appearing as a wave. It's the ocean playing at being a wave. It's a wave. It's the ocean waving. You know. So then the question is, well, who would get rid of this ego? I mean, who would get rid of the wave? You know, who is going to do it? So the wave says to itself, okay, I need to get rid of myself. I need to get rid of ego. I need to get rid of the I. I need to get rid of the mind. I need to get rid of the self. Whatever. I mean, and there's lots of spiritual teachers out there who seem to be playing that game as well. You know, they say things like, you know, it's very important to kill the ego, destroy the mind, transcend the self, get rid of the person, stop being a person, get rid of the person, stop being someone and become no one, and then there'll be oneness. So it's almost like saying that oneness is everything. Oneness is absolutely everything.
But not the ego.
But not the ego. Yeah. So oneness is absolutely everything that exists, except you. It's absolutely everything except you. And of course, you is the world, right? That the world is a reflection of you. When there's no ego, there's no I, there is no world. So it's almost like saying oneness is everything except the world. Oneness is absolutely everything. It's everything that exists. Oh, well, except you and everything you love and all your relationships and your entire life and the entire. So it's like saying oneness is everything except everything. So that doesn't sound like oneness to me. You know, the point is that sounds like a concept of oneness. That sounds like an individual's concept of what oneness is. So oneness is everything except ego. Oneness is everything except. What oneness? It can't be except. It can't be except.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be everything. So it's like when it's seen that it's everything, when it's seen that it's the ocean appearing as everything, then the need to get rid of anything simply falls away. There's no need anymore to get rid of anything, because it's seen that there is already only oneness. And the appearance of a wave, you see, the appearance of the character, you know, the character Jeff, the character Patrick, you know, and the world, so Jeff's world and Patrick's world, you know, because without Patrick there is no world, without Jeff there is no world, there is no experience, there is absolutely nothing. Without the world there is no possibility of anything. I mean, without duality, without at least the appearance of duality, you know, without the appearance of the wave, without the appearance of me, you, past, future, you know, here, there, table, chair. I mean, without duality, there's no possibility of even talking like this. I mean, there has to, the appearance isn't lost. That's the beauty of it, you see. So I spent years as a spiritual seeker desperately trying to get rid of the wave, because I thought the wave was the enemy somehow. Get rid of the wave, then I'll be oneness. But actually, of course, the whole time it was the wave fighting itself. You see, it was water fighting water.
So it strengthens the ego.
It strengthens the ego, exactly.
Okay.
Whatever the ego is. I mean, the ego is, you could say, it's identification as being a separate person. So the ego is separation. So it's separation, fighting separation, actually ends up deepening the sense of being someone fighting something. Someone versus the ego.
Yeah.
And then, you know, at some point years ago, I thought that I was free from the ego. I thought that I was free. It was brilliant. You know, I thought I was free from I. And I knew that, you see. And then, in order to maintain that identity of being someone free from the ego, I had to project out there people who were not free from the ego, in order to keep my identification going as someone who... It's amazing, it's brilliant. The ways in which you can delude yourself into thinking that you're free. So, true freedom, it's not about, you know, it was never about getting rid of Jeff. It was never about getting rid of the wave. In a way, it was just a total embrace of that wave, and or at least seeing that the wave is already fully embraced, that the wave is already fully that. So then there's nothing to fight. There's nothing to get rid of. Like
someone told me something that isn't true. You can't fight. You can't fight anything that's just an imagination.
Exactly. When you fight an illusion, you're assuming that the illusion is real. So when you fight the ego, you're assuming there's an ego.
You confirm it.
You confirm it. And so as long as you're fighting an ego, there appears to be an ego. It's brilliant, you know.
It's a great cosmic joke.
Yeah.
That's the same thing if you say I'm enlightened and you're not. Same trick.
Yeah, I mean, who is going to claim to be enlightened? You know, I again, years ago, I used to believe that I was enlightened. You know, and I didn't realise that was just another identity. It was just something I would have to wake up in the morning and on some level tell myself that remind myself that I was enlightened. And in order to keep that identity going as someone who is enlightened, I had to project out in my world, because your world is always a projection of you. So in order to keep my identity going as someone who is enlightened, I had to project out there people who weren't enlightened. So that's the guru game, you see. Yeah. I'm enlightened, you're not. And so that's why I always say, you know...
So is it the same thing like when a child says, my dad has a bigger car than your dad?
Yeah.
The same principle?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just identity. I mean, how can you know? I mean, how can you know what you are until you tell yourself what you are? So ultimately you have no way of knowing who or what you are until you tell yourself what you are. So you have no way of knowing that you're enlightened until you tell yourself on some level that you're enlightened. That's how it works, you know.
But it's still the same game, trying to exist
as
something in the world.
It's like, I don't know who I am. Who am I? I'm enlightened. Phew, I know who I am.
But some other man is like the big champion in sports. That's his identity. And I'm like the big enlightened one with the BMW.
Yeah, and years ago when I used to think that I was enlightened, you see, I thought that I was free from all identity. And what I couldn't see is that had become my identity. In fact, probably a stronger identity than ever. But I couldn't see it, you see, I couldn't see it. And I mean, there even came a time where I realised that I couldn't be enlightened, but then I took on this idea that I was no one, you see. I thought that I had got rid of my someone, you see. I had got rid of the wave, or the wave had fallen away. And now I was no one. So for a while I even had that running, you see.
But how did it play out in life?
It's the same thing.
Did you act different when you thought you were no one? Did you care about anything or meet people or?
Well, it's the same thing, really. It's the same game. In order to maintain that identity that I was no one, again, I had to project out in the world people who they were still someone's. So it was still separation. It was still separation.
Yeah. So no Facebook for you, no.
No. So in a way, I had to live up to this image that I created that I was no one. You see. Yeah. So even that was seen through in the end. Even that, I can't. That's the real freedom. Like, you can't even be no one. You can't even be no one.
But concluding this segment, there's nothing wrong with being a person or with. Because that's what people want to get rid of, being a person.
Well,
but just being someone with likes and dislikes and hobbies and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. From the perspective of the ocean, there's no problem with the appearance of the wave. So the wave, it celebrates itself as the appearance.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the real freedom was when all this enlightenment crap fell away, all this spiritual stuff, just to be Jeff again, to be able to just live as this, whatever this is. I'm Jeff, I'm not Jeff, I'm someone, I'm no one. In the end, it doesn't matter. You live this because this is the celebration. It's the ocean celebrating as the appearance of a character in a world, even though ultimately there's no one there and there's no world. But
you don't have to project it out.
You don't have to project it out.
So Jeff, the mind likes to tell stories, make stories, remember stories. Could you call it a story maker? And is there anything wrong with a story maker? Doesn't it?
Well, you see, again, when there's no thought, let's just say that the mind. When I say the mind, I don't mean there's any solid entity there for the mind. I just mean
thoughts.
Presently arising thought. That's all you'll ever find. Again, you'll never find
a mind.
I searched for years. I never found a mind.
But we think it's that thing
we think there's
in our head.
There's something in
the
here.
brain. Yeah.
It's never part of your experience. You never experience a mind. All you ever find, just like all you ever find is a bird singing. A bird singing, a car going past. You find thoughts appearing and disappearing. So sounds come and go. Thoughts come and go. Feelings in the body come and go. I never found a mind outside of any of that. So all you'll ever find is thoughts coming and going.
So there isn't such a thing as a story. It's just a collection of thoughts, or.
Well, in a way, thoughts are stories. So the thought, it's a bird. So you could say that's a story. It's a story. It's a thought. It's a concept. It's a tale. It's whatever. So without thought, there's no world. Without thought, you have no way of knowing that it's a bird. It's just the same. It's the same thing with before the story. So before the story that you are someone sitting on a chair in a room in where? Holland.
Leusden.
That's it. Before the story that you are someone sitting on a chair in a room, before that story, before those thoughts, you have no way of knowing what this is. So before the story, there's just the mystery. There's just the not knowing, and it's not that there's someone there experiencing the mystery. It's not that there's someone there experiencing not knowing. There's just not knowing. There's nothing to know. So in a way, that your story is your experience. So without the story that you're a person sitting on a chair in a room, you have no way of knowing what you're experiencing. So in order to experience being a person sitting on a chair in a room, on some level you have to tell yourself. There has to be the story running. Yeah.
So things happen, and later on.
Yeah, and it happens. Quicker than time, in fact, because in a sense the story is time. The story is time. So it's like every night in deep dreamless sleep, when you're asleep but you're not dreaming, so there's no mind activity, so there's no stories happening.
There's no world.
There's no world, exactly. But it's not. Even that isn't quite true, you see, because there's no one there experiencing the absence of a world either. So actually there's not even no world. You can't really say that. You can't really say anything.
You don't know.
You don't know.
No.
Well, there's no one there to know. So there's no one there who can even say I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's you could say there's absolutely nothing, but there's not even that, because there's no one there separating nothing from everything. So.
Yeah. You can't give me nothing. No.
So then, what appears to happen is, in the morning, there appears to be there's some sort of contraction happens, some sort of out of the, you could say, like the vastness of being. Some sort of contraction happens, and before you know it, you have. Well, the story appears. The story, me and world. That's in a way that's the primal. The first story is I. And the moment you have I, you have world. They always appear together. Me and world. I and world. So out of the unknowable vastness, whatever you want to call it, because you can't call it anything, appears the I.
And the world.
And the world. And you see, it's impossible to talk about in language, because the appearance of the I is the appearance of language. With no I, there's no language, you see. So you can't really say what's there before the appearance of I.
Language isn't sufficient.
Language isn't, and nothing's sufficient, really. No. So, that...
But about this story, you write, the story is always old, silence is always fresh and new. Mm-hmm. So it always comes afterwards. It's always like it's not the real thing, the story. But but that's what we think is the real thing, the story. But it's just a story about that which you can't talk about, right?
Yeah, because the story's old, because it's it's language, it's words, and words are always from the past. You've learnt these words, you pick them up in the past. So, in a way, you call this. You say, "I'm a person sitting on a chair." It's like, in a way, so you don't have to really see what's happening. You say, "Oh, I know it. I know. Yeah, I know that I'm someone sitting on a chair in a room. I know that. I know it."
So it's not fresh anymore.
In a way, it's not fresh, and so you become Well, of course, it's just sitting on a chair. It's nothing. There's much more exciting and fresh and important things out there in the world to find.
But the first time when you were a little child and you sat on a chair or you walked by yourself, that was fantastic, because it was the first time. You say experience life. Experience is maybe not a good word, but every time is fresh and new. Sitting on a chair for the first time.
But that's what's happening.
That's what's happening.
Without the story, you have no way of knowing that you've done this before. Yeah. It's the story that tells you, "Oh, I've done this a million times before." Yeah. It's nothing. It's not.
But with sex, you experience it as it's the first time ever, again and again. Normally.
Normally. Yeah, I mean, it's there in. Yeah, I mean, it's like so many times in our lives, and even like throughout the day, we do experience that freshness, but we don't. In a way, you see, to the mind, the freshness it's nothing, because you can't kind of grasp it. You can't possess freshness. Mm-hmm. The mind can't possess freshness. So in a way, the mind isn't particularly interested in freshness, but it's like always there. It's there in sex, in music, when you're listening to music, when you're absorbed in watching a movie,
watching the clouds,
just walking through nature, or just engaged in the conversation, or playing with your kids, or even like doing the washing up, or.
But that's a strange thing when you listen to a talk like this, or when you go to a meeting with you. It feels fresh after like 10-15 minutes, when the mind is gone. Stop complaining about it's moist in here or cold or whatever. Then the freshness, whoop. It comes, but it's still the same thing you tell. So that's the mystery.
That's the mystery. I've told this story before, but I think it just it kind of says it all, really. I mean, we've all had this experience. Now, I've been in hospital for a couple of weeks, and I hadn't eaten for a couple of weeks, or a week, I think. And I was absolutely starving. I hadn't had any appetite up to that point, but I woke up one morning and suddenly my appetite was coming back. I'll never ever forget my mum. She was so sweet. She went out to McDonald's and bought me like a 99p hamburger.
Big Mac?
No, it wasn't a Big Mac.
Just
it was
the small.
A tiny
yeah.
And I'll never forget. It was like eating. It was like tasting food for the first time. I mean, it really was.
You forgot how an hamburger tasted.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and it was like, without the story, there's just the miracle. But it's strange how a lot of us experience that, you know, when we've been ill for a long time, and it's like you've been in bed for a few weeks, and finally you can walk again. Finally you can stand up again. You can eat again. You can drink again. And suddenly,
we have, like, I had bracelets in my youth, and then when it got out, I felt my teeth with my tongue again. It felt also fresh and new.
But it's like that freshness. It's always there. You know, it's like this was the same hamburger. Like, the hamburger hadn't changed.
Yeah.
It's just that in that moment, it was just a miracle. I mean, it was like I'd never eaten before. This was the first and last time I was ever going to taste food. But you see, that miracle is always there. But you can't possess it. This is the thing. The mind can't comprehend the miracle, and it can't own the miracle.
Tries to.
It tries to, exactly. That's the seeking, really. So, you know, it's like, is the seeker, is the mind going to be interested in a message that says, really, that there's nothing to get? There is only the miracle of life, and it's happening right now, but you can't have it. Yeah, but you can't have it.
You tell, if you know that you can't have anything, everything is yours.
In a very mysterious way, yeah, that's the thing. You know, in a very mysterious way, when it's seen that you know that none of this is yours, that there is only the present appearance of life, and it's not yours. Like you don't own life. Like no one can own life. You don't own. It's like the separate wave doesn't own a part of the ocean. No. You can't own a part of life.
You are life.
You are life.
So Jeff, this thing we're talking about, Advaita, non-duality, could you say you have to be careful that the mind doesn't get hold of it and uses it like a trap? Yeah,
I mean, the mind can latch onto anything, you know, and for example, I mean, even the word non-duality it's a strange word, you know, and the way the mind might interpret it is that non-duality means not duality. So in a way, the mind thinks that non-duality, it's all about getting rid of duality or rejecting duality. It was like I was saying before about the wave in the ocean. So the mind might think, well, it's about rejecting the wave. It's about getting rid of the wave, or that, you know, the ocean is somehow better than the wave. So non-duality is somehow better than duality. So this is a real trap, you know. And years ago, when I was really into non-duality, and I'd really identify myself as you know,
as a non-dualist,
or you know, I was saying before, you know, I used to really believe that I was no one. You know, I thought that my person had fallen away, or that the character, the person, the self had fallen away, and now there was no one. You see.
But how can you recognize that someone is like in that trap, that he uses non-duality as a concept, and is there ways to recognize this? Have you seen it?
Well, yeah, I used to see it in myself, you know. I mean, of course, at the time I didn't see it. This is the thing. At the time I didn't see it, you know, because I would go around saying things. Well, actually, I never said it to anyone, but I would go around thinking, you know, that, you know, I was no one, and so I would look at someone and I would think, well, they must still be a someone. It's like I was free from the dream. I had escaped the dream. I was free, and that they were still in the dream. So, you know, I was no one, but you were still someone. Or, and I mean, it's completely dualistic, you know. I mean, to say something like, you know, my teaching is non-dualistic. You know, so you could say what I'm talking about is non-duality, but what you're talking about is duality. So my teaching is non-dualistic. Your teaching is dualistic. There's a complete separation there between non-duality and duality. In a way, that's the ultimate separation, is between non-duality and duality. That separation doesn't actually exist. That's all thought.
Mind stuff.
That's all mind stuff still. Yeah. It's a real trap, and you can become really identified with, I'm a non-dual person, or even like I'm a non-duality teacher. You know, I'm a non-duality teacher.
And all other teachings are bullshit.
And all other teachings are dualistic. All other teachings are essentially wrong. You know, my teaching is true, right? Your teaching is wrong. I mean, that's the guru game, and it's dangerous in a way, because, you know, I mean, this is what I used to do years ago, and luckily I completely broke out of it because I saw it was just another trap. It was a trap, you know.
Yeah.
It was the mind thinking that you. So I used to think I was completely free. I used to think that I was free from separation. Yet still, I was separating between I was no one, you're someone, or the way I see things is non-dualistic. The way you see things is still dualistic.
So you're wrong, I'm right.
It's just another version. It's another version of the old religious stuff. You know, that my religion is right, yours is wrong. You have to be very careful, really. You know, and that the mind, in a way, it can get more and more subtle. You know, it's. I mean, it's. What I used to notice was how subtle and clever the mind can get in keeping separation going, and at the same time being in denial that separation is still happening. So it's like I'm completely free from separation, but you're not.
Still separation.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, you know, and it's a way for the seeker to keep himself going, to keep itself going, because at the end of the day, the seeker doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
And really, this message is all about death of the seeker, or the end of the seeker.
End of separation.
The end of separation. So, really, in a way, the mind had misused the pointer. So there's this pointer that says I am no one, and there's kind of truth to that, you know, in that you'll never find a separate, solid individual here. All you'll ever really find is space, you know, open space in which the world appears, in which everything appears. Mm-hmm. But you see, when the mind latches onto that concept of no one, this is very, very clever. This is very clever. The mind can latch onto that image of being no one, and it can identify with that. So years ago, when I used to think that I was no one, what had happened very cleverly is that I had taken a picture of myself, and I had kind of inverted it. I'd flipped it around. So first I was someone, but now I'm no one. You see. But at the same time, I used to think I didn't have an identity. I used to think that I was free from identity. Actually, I had identified with a picture, a very personal image of myself being no one.
The invisible man.
The invisible man. So that's a real trap in a way in non-duality. And you know, and over the past few years doing these meetings, and you do meet people, and you can see they're so identified with being no one. It's incredible, you know, and they really believe that they're no one, and they'll say things like, you know, I can tell you're still someone. It's not possible that, you know, it's like so in order to be no one, you need someone else to be someone. Otherwise, you can't be no one. Yeah. So it's like you're using. This is what I was doing years ago. I was using the other person. I was projecting that they were still someone in order to maintain my identity as no one. At the same time, thinking that I was free.
Aren't those the people who are at meetings and when someone asks a question, they go like, oh, "Don't you get it?" People who react like that when seekers start asking questions.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way that I realised, you know, years ago that there was a real arrogance in what I was doing. You know, thinking that I was no one, because of course, no one. I was in a very subtle way, you know, superior. You were still lost in the dream, but I was free from the dream.
Yeah, listen to me and
I think that's the danger in a way of, you know, becoming a teacher. It's a very dangerous thing when you because this is what I noticed years ago when I started doing the meetings. What I noticed was that the mind wanted to come in. You know, because there I was, you know, sitting in front of a group of people, all kind of listening to me.
Yeah, they paid money.
They paid money to come and listen to me. And what I mean, at that point, you know, I saw quite clearly that I couldn't be anything special, and that there was really, you know, I'm not separate from any of these people. But what I noticed, there's still this very subtle movement. The mind it was like it would try to come in and go,
that's nice.
You're Jeff. This is interesting. You know, you're.
Your name is on the poster.
Yeah, maybe you are a little bit special. You know, maybe.
Yeah, I recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, luckily at that point, I kind of it was kind of seen through very quickly that this was just another thought. This was thought trying to claim.
Yeah.
Trying to claim something, but then it can be quite an intoxicating thing, you know, for the seeker, for the mind to be in front of a group of people, to have people listening to you. And you start thinking, you know, you start to believe your own bullshit. If you're not careful, you can start to really believe, maybe I really am no one. You know, I'm no one. I'm enlightened. I'm no one. I'm special. I'm the guru. You know, I'm And all these people, they still don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
But that's the
But they
moment
don't
when
get
you're going to sell little Jeff Foster's little miniatures.
Which are available, actually.
Yeah, on the website.
Yeah, I was about to mention that, but you got
So Jeff, this thing called free will, everybody talks about having choice. Yeah? You just choose to pick up the glass of water and take a sip of it. Or did it just happen? What do you say to people when they ask you, well, where's this thing called choice? I have to choose my life. I have to be very careful in what I choose. I can only spend my money once.
Yeah, well, the mind, the seeker, the mind, the person, whatever you want to call it, it wants to know. It wants to know, is there choice or not?
For me.
For me, it's to do with me, isn't it? Is there choice or not? Is there a self or not? Is there choice or not? Is there time or not? Is there a path or it's always one or the other. It wants to know choice or no choice. So
you say there's both.
Well, it's in a way it's beyond both because so it's the story that you tell. So you tell the story that you are right here where you are now. So you tell the story that you're sitting here on this chair now because of all the choices that you've made throughout your life. You say, I'm here now because of all the millions of choices that I've made throughout my life.
Yeah.
Or you could tell the opposite story. This is the story I used to tell when I was a spiritual seeker, because I'd taken on a lot of the concepts, a lot of the spiritual concepts, a lot of the Advaita concepts. And Advaita, they say that there is no choice.
No free will.
There is no free will. So then I started to believe that. I started to believe that there was no choice. So that's something you could believe as well. You could believe that there's no choice, that you're here, and it was predestined, that you're just this kind of divine puppet. That there's absolutely nothing you can do. That it's all been planned. You could believe that, but ultimately both actually are just stories. They both arise and fall away with the I, with the appearance of the person. So there is choice and there is no choice. Both arise and fall together. They're just dualistic opposites. For what this is it's always beyond both. It's always completely beyond both. So the way I usually tell it, which makes it quite simple, is that you're walking down the
street.
I can't, because what happened?
I know what you're thinking about.
Oh no, have I ruined it now?
No, that's all. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, cut that bit out.
Yeah.
So you're walking down the street and you've come to a junction. You see, and it looks as though you can either go left or you can go right.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell yourself, okay, I can choose. I can either choose left or I can choose right. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna go left, and then you go left, and you look back and you say, okay, I'm here because I chose to be here. It seems obvious enough. I'm here because I chose to go left.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take that same scene and you rewind it and you play it back, but without the soundtrack of thought, without the commentary, it's like on a DVD switching off the
subtitles.
Yeah, switching off the commentary that says I'm choosing. What you actually see is a body moving down the street and going left.
And even left is a concept.
Well, exactly, you see, because the body, it doesn't know that it's going left. It doesn't know that it's choosing left. The choice isn't a concept for the body. There's just movement, and there's just movement.
Yeah.
So telling the story that you chose to go left is exactly the same thing as telling the story that you could have chosen to go right. Saying I chose left is identical with saying I could have chosen right, that going right was a possibility.
Just a story.
But of course, because going right only appeared to be a possibility from within your dream, what actually happened was going left. That was the only possibility. So because actually what happens is the possibility. See, what happens is the only possibility. The only possibility was going left. Going right was not a possibility because it didn't happen. So it's like total alignment with life. So the only possibility is what happens.
Okay, but now we're talking about going left or right on a crossroad or a junction. Let's say I think I made a choice and that killed my brother. then your whole life is filled with regret. You say on your Twitter page, seeing that you had no choice is the end of regret.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing to acknowledge.
Yeah, because ultimately, see, it's not really about choosing or not choosing. It's seeing that no one chooses. There's actually no one there who can choose or not choose. That it's life. It's life just living itself. It doesn't mean that it's predestined. You see, that's the thing. It doesn't mean that all of this has been planned by some entity. Because the idea that life is predestined is the idea that everything has already been planned. So
there's no story. There's no like book of life with everything in it.
Well, exactly. Because there's no entity behind life who has planned life. That's the old God myth, that there's some entity separate from life who has planned life. The point is there is only life. So all there is going left.
But they say God's will, Allah's will, shall be done. Can you link that to this?
Yeah, I guess it depends how you use the word God. I mean, when I use the word God, I don't think of some man up in the sky. For me, God is another word for this. It's another word for life, love, energy, nothing, everything. It's just it's a pointer.
Yeah.
So in a way, when you see that what happened,
and you say when there's no choice, there's no confusion. So thinking you had a choice ultimately brings confusion.
Yeah, I mean, you could stand there for hours, for days, trying to decide whether to go left or right, and then you find yourself going left, and you tell the story that you went left because you sat there for days
and
deciding
thinking about it.
For going. Actually, the choice apparently happens when confusion drops. The choice isn't a result of you trying to make a choice. It's when the attempt to choose falls away, then action naturally happens. You see.
So it's just procrastination, all that thinking stuff about what should I do.
Yeah, and you find yourself, there's nothing wrong with sitting down and trying to make intelligent decisions. I mean, say a relative is ill, or an elderly relative is ill, and you might sit down with your family and talk together and try to come to a decision about how to help them. That all goes on. There's intelligent choices can still be made. Within the dream. It's.
But not by thinking about them.
Well, it looks like, you see it, and that's the play. So it looks like you sat down to decide whether to go left or right, and it looks like as a result of all that thinking you chose to go left. But it still looks like that. You see.
But it's the same with driving a car. If you start thinking about what should I do on the road, you just create accidents. Driving is just go with the flow.
Well, exactly, because in the end, it's almost like life knows there's just this total trust in life. But it's not that you're trusting in something separate called life. The trust is life because it is what you are. So in that, going left happens, going right happens, and there's just a knowing that nothing. That it's like. Only the right thing can happen in that sense, because there was no other possibility. And so what? You go left, and it turns out that maybe you should have gone right. So that happens as well. So you go left, you make a decision, you find out it wasn't the right thing for you, so you do something else. It's interesting because the word choice, is actually related to the word taste. But so you see, we think that we're choosing to go left or right. In a way, all we're really doing is we're tasting left. You see, we taste going left, and that doesn't work out. So we taste going right, but then it isn't so serious. You see, because we think I need to make the right choices. Which is the right choice for me, left or right? I need to choose the correct life.
The correct life.
The correct life. Which does the correct life for me? Does it lie? Does it lie at the end of the left road or the right road? So this is very important that I choose correctly now, because this is a matter of life or death. This is a matter of choosing the right life for me.
Making no mistake.
Exactly, because I think I'm in control of my life. I need to make the right choice now, so I can have so I can make life go the way I want it to. Mm-hmm. So in the end, you see, it's not really about choice, it's about control. It's about control.
And you say about control, the fear of losing control disappears when it's seen that you never were in control in the first place.
Yeah.
Your text, Jeff. Great Twitter. Twitter.com/world of being, wonder of being.
Twitter.com/wonder of being.
You should follow him. So Jeff, talking about control. Controlling life. That's the biggest joke of all. Life can't be controlled? Or can it?
Well, in order to control life, you'd have to be somehow separate from life. So the idea that you can control life, or even that you need to control life, comes out of this faulty assumption, really, that you are separate from life in the first place. So when that assumption of separation really is at the root of all these questions, you know. So when that is seen through, then the question just falls away. Am I in control? Can I control? Do I need to control? It all becomes irrelevant because there is just life, you know.
Nobody at the steering wheel.
No. Sorry.
Just happening. Yeah. Okay. Love. That's a big thing in people's lives, and especially unconditional love. That's ultimately, I think, what everybody longs for, or what you are and you want to recognize, or you are recognizing in everything. You write, unconditional love is meeting someone without hope, without expectation, without the mind stuff, just meeting.
Yeah, you know, and that meeting is really all that's ever happening. We're always meeting each other without our story, you see. No, in a way. So right now, you know, so there's the story of Jeff appearing, there's the story of Patrick, but these are just stories appearing in this, you know, this which is beyond all stories. So beyond the story of Jeff and the story of Patrick, what could possibly come between us? You know, in a way, it's our stories that appear to come between us. The story of me and my past, you and your past, me and my beliefs, me and my religion, me and my blah 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 blah. But beyond those stories, I mean, what is there that could possibly come between us? You'll never actually find anything that could possibly come between you apart from a thought. And of course, it begins with the thought, me and you. That's where the division begins. You know, in ways, the origin of all violence it's right here with me and you. You know? But then, and you could say that love is
Love is all around.
Love is all around.
Yeah.
Love is all there is, because love is the falling away of me and you. So it's not actually that me and you fall in love. Like, me and you don't fall in love. What happens in love, in what we call love, is the me and you, that which apparently separates us, falls away, and all that's left is love beyond the concept of love. This is the thing. I mean, you can't put it into words. I mean, so that's why we call it, you know, we call it falling in love, because it is a falling in a way. It's a falling away of. It's the complete paradox in a way, isn't it? It's the falling in love is the falling away of the two people who could be in love. So all that's left is just the mystery of it and just the wonder of it.
Yeah.
And it's only then that the thought comes back in. The mind comes back in and says, I love you. I, a separate person, love you, a separate person. That's not actually what happened. That didn't happen.
No.
Again, you'll never you'll never find that. You never actually find two things. You see, but the mind comes in a way. It tries to possess love. It tries to own love. You know, so I love you, and then it moves into I. Therefore, I need to keep you. I need to keep you. I need to keep you with me.
Give me love.
Give me love,
and
then that's
back.
where the manipulation begins.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, real love. It's not, in a way. It's not about getting anything. It's about, if it's anything, it's like a total loss. You know, it's like the loss of me and you.
But also the loss of a sense of being an individual, a separate individual.
Yeah, but that's the thing, that love isn't something new that comes along. It's not that me and you fall away and something new called love, something new that wasn't there before comes in. What's revealed is what was always there. It never went away. It just apparently was obscured by this me and you game. So it's like the me and you trying to be in love paradoxically ends up
being a disaster.
Being a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that's why it's there. Maybe in the end it becomes exhausting. You know, this me and you game. And so in the end, you know, that exhaustion is just pointing to this love which is beyond this me and you game. You know, because the manipulation thing, the control thing, doesn't work in the end, really. You know, and even if you could possess someone totally, if you could manipulate them totally, if you could have them, you could control them so much they looked exactly the way you wanted them to look, they behaved exactly the way you wanted them to behave.
Love is gone.
Yeah, it wouldn't satisfy. It couldn't.
No.
It couldn't. Because what we really long for actually is the absence of all of that. If we're honest, and that's you know, what we really long for is unconditional love. Unconditional love, you know, and you can't get unconditional love through manipulation, because it's there before the manipulation even begins. It's already there.
Yeah.
But again, the mind can't grasp it. You see, the mind can grasp a person, and it can try and hold on to a person.
Try to change a person.
It can try. Yeah, that's easy for the mind. It can do that, or at least it thinks it can do that. But love is deadly. You know, unconditional love is deadly to that seeker. I mean, it's just a form of seeking. You know, conditional love is a form of seeking. And
we all long for it.
We long for unconditional love, and we, in a way, it's quite innocent. You know, this conditional love. You know, the way we manipulate other people, we try and control them, we try and possess them. In a way, it's a desperate attempt of the mind to reach unconditional love. So it's like even conditional love in the end is pointing to unconditional love.
Yeah.
You see, so everything points back to that in the end. See.
Okay, Jeff. Concluding, there's a new book coming out of you.
Is there?
Yeah, I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, over here in the Netherlands.
Don't buy it. It's terrible.
No, it's a terrible book.
No, it's a wonderful book.
Should we use
it's written by a wonderful, enlightened man.
Yeah, which you can buy little miniature puppets of.
Yeah, miniature puppets.
But what's the book called?
I have no idea.
Come on, Jeff.
No, I really don't.
I think it's a Dutch translation of.
Should we start this bit again?
Yeah.
Let's start this bit again, because the publisher probably won't like it.
I was. If people who do not know anything about this would ask you, but then what do you talk about? What would you say?
If someone doesn't know about this anything, I don't talk about this.
You don't talk?
No, doesn't come out. I used to try, but reaction is always kind of like a anger.
Yeah.
Anger come out, and then they just straight away I can see they don't want to hear this.
So why do you think people find this message so scary?
Scary. First of all, it just have no idea that it's shocking that nobody. Straight away I said nobody's here. What is she saying? They think I'm stupid or crazy or something like that. So I don't know if they don't want to hear this. Maybe scared of out of control, or without them, or I have no idea.
No.
Because when I heard this first time, I was so excited.
Yeah. When was that?
That was 2005. I went to Boston to study macrobiotic.
Yeah.
And I met the guy just had an awakening, and he's just talking. And just the first time I heard something like a spiritual, I didn't know anything about spirituality. And wow, what he's talking about, I just fascinated.
And what was he pointing at that time?
At the time, one explanation I really remember is that he was a truck driver.
Yeah.
And he said, I suddenly realized that without thought, I was perfectly drew for 10 hours. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And another thing is that, and I realized that point he started and where he arrived was same place.
Yeah.
And then it simultaneously arrived. That's what he suddenly realized. And he started to talk about there is no time. And he said everything's happening perfect moment, perfectly. And he said the phantom self. We have the phantom self. And I think he wrote the book Phantom Self or something like that. He's American.
Oh, nice.
But he suddenly disappeared. We had a connection with email and Facebook, but he disappeared from everything.
Oh.
I don't know.
Okay. And then, when you first heard this message, you were enthusiastic about it?
Yes.
And then what happened?
And because I was in Japan, after 1 week, so I didn't study macrobiotic. I was talking to him whole week in a conference, like a garden like this.
Yeah.
And after that, I went back to Japan, and for 6 months, I was speaking to him on the Skype.
Okay.
And he recommended Eckhart Tolle's book, and I started to read, and then someone else. I have a friend. She's been spirituality for 30 years, and she recommended Tony Person.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And we used the two of us for maybe 2 years. Every Sunday we had two of us just a meeting, talk about what Tony said, what someone said. Just talked about it because no information in Japan about non-duality that time, maybe 2005, 2006.
Okay.
And then after that, I flew to UK to see Tony several times. That was 2006, 2007. And then I start continuously going to meetings.
Okay. And did something change in your conditioning or behavior?
Well, no. Then in that time, I really didn't understand that what Tony was saying.
Yeah.
And only short time, then not like now, you can get all information on YouTube or so many books and so many information. But that time, I just went to see him and then come back, and I sometimes forget and going back to just non-duality food.
Yeah.
Going to work and forget everything. Maybe forgot about and I started to yoga as well. So I just go into yoga that time. And then when I moved to France last 5 years ago, my friend, I almost didn't think about anything about non-duality that time, but my friend told me that the guy who called Rupert Spiders coming to Paris, so you should go. She asked me. That was one day before the talks.
Okay.
I just went because I was just very close. Then studied again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And when you give, increase the talk yourself, what are you pointing at?
What I'm pointing at is this: what is happening, and when me is here, me is there. Since I was child baby, I remember that I was surrounded by my parents, many friends and relatives, and so much love. And I was so protected, but always felt the loneliness or something missing. And then that's become teenager, started to something missing. It was always there in whole my life. I can tell now. That time I didn't recognize it, but something was missing. I didn't realize what was it. And then I thought Japanese culture is wrong, so I started to travel many places. And because I thought that this country didn't suit me. That's why. So I have to seek for somewhere to move. So I started to move around the different countries. But then I got tired of everything. I tried everything. That time I wasn't really, I didn't know about spirituality. So I was looking for somewhere try to change the condition, the place,
Yeah.
like where I live, or try to improve the condition of the life.
Mm-hmm.
But then realize that that's never gonna happen. I felt like I was so tired of trying. Next moment. What I'm pointing at is that as long as you identify with your body, person, as soon as you think you're the body and I am here, and the world outside, separation happens, and that means already contraction happening. That's already uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So as long as you have that, then you always seek. So, but then person can only seek the inner time and space. So you have to seek for future, next moment, to do something or to get something, but never gonna find it because already still you're me here.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And it's not the problem, but that's the cause of the seek. So what I'm pointing at is that I somehow realized that everything's happening by itself and there is no control. No control at all means just only little tiny part of little thought. But then after that become like energetic, because since we are child, we are told you're the body. But then after me it's gone, so obvious that everything's happening already.
Yeah.
It's so obvious and it's so simple. And what I'm pointing at is everything happening by itself. Me is not. It's happening, but not really happening. And me is not at all necessary what everything's happening. Without me, everything's happening. So, how can I say?
But then, when people say, "Okay, then there's no me," but then who are you?
That question also doesn't make sense. There, that question doesn't make sense because already who are you means that you already some idea that someone's here.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, no thing, no entity. Everything is there's everything and there's nothing. That means there is no second to look at this what is happening. There is only what is happening. What is.
Yeah, it's so simple.
So, yeah, I know. This is so simple. But that means nobody can see this. Nobody can see this. Nobody can know this. Nobody watch. Nobody can aware. Nobody knows this. It's impossible because everything's happening by itself.
Yeah.
So impossible to talk about this. But this is when you realize this, it's just obvious. It's so simple.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
And still talking about it happens.
I know.
Even though it's silly.
I know.
Even though doing 100 interviews. So the words you speak are not it.
No, not at all. Some people ask me because the way I look or I don't know, just the way I say. If I look like a guru, then maybe people more like have more conviction what I say. But actually that's this simpleness, because I wasn't really intellectual, so didn't read so many books, so wasn't really seeking in like following someone too much, or I didn't read Nisargadatta, or I don't know, just I didn't have anything like that. It's just I knew Tony Parsons.
Yeah.
So, and
but people maybe when they see a real guru with the beard and the right costume and the high chair, they might think there's something to get.
Yeah.
And for you, and also I'm just a blonde guy, you're just a cute Japanese girl. I mean, it's not really guru-like, is it?
But this is about, again, nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with anything. Because everything and nothing. That means, how come that appearance of everything. One appearance can say anything. Only appearance.
Yeah.
All guru's appearance, they're empty.
Yeah. Everything is empty.
Everything's empty.
Yeah.
And how can the appearance can give the advice? People are asking me sometimes, what do you think that, what is your advice? How can I give the advice? I mean, like, this is happening by itself. I don't know anything.
But people who suffer a lot, you also said you were searching around the whole
Yeah.
globe trying to
Yeah.
find the answers.
But then I have to say, this is all story.
It is all story,
Yeah.
yeah. Everything we say is story anyway. But people who suffer come to these talks,
Yeah,
and maybe they try to get something.
yeah.
But are they gonna get something?
No. No, but then another thing is that this is funny. I really don't see someone's suffering. I don't see it. If people say there's a suffering, I can't. I mean, I can't.
What is
see it.
suffering, you think?
Suffering is the contracted feeling, identification with yourself, because then contracted.
Mm-hmm.
Then because me is always already that's in contracted feeling, separation feels very uncomfortable. Because maybe most of the people, apparent people, don't realize this. But since I was baby, this is my mom told me, I was such a nervous baby. I was like almost like a scared, just a baby. But you can see that the little baby is so frightening.
Yeah.
Since I was born like that, so I was really sensitive. So sensitive to maybe that's why I kind of knew that this separation was already suffering.
Yeah.
No,
So when you realized that there was no one inside Neo,
that's funny.
yeah. This loneliness you felt before, or this emptiness, did that change?
You're gone. It's gone. Because this is like just a pointing up, because this is impossible to talk about. But this is how I explain, it's just a pointing up. But then whenever you are, always this. But the way I say is you are, but without you.
Yeah.
So always this, without you. So you don't need to go anywhere. It's just this, without you, and no separation. And it's just that from the moment, everything is love. The sensation, everything, whole world is love. Then, but still life continues. But there's no.
So you're saying maybe like this is love happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love happening.
Life or love happening. Life
Yeah,
is love.
love, yeah.
And in the Advaita it says this is not two. There are several teachers who use words for this oneness. Have you got a specific word you often use?
I prefer everything and nothing, because oneness sounds like a for here it's like a round one.
yeah.
It's like a limited, but this is endless. It's impossible to know, no limitation. So prefer everything and nothing, and simultaneously everything and nothing.
Yeah.
This is again impossible to understand.
Because we think always think that we are something.
Yeah. So as long as this is a game that's an energetic thing. This eventually that the position also doesn't. Position also falls away, but then as long as you're here, then you're just looking out, and always positioned here like a limited with your body. Then you feel like you are moving around everywhere. You have to go somewhere. Then look out. Then always you prefer somewhere else. you
Something better.
something better, because me only can see through the veil of me, but actually that it's not you, but everything is life. Without you, then it's everything love, almost like in love, almost like surrounded by love. This is words, so it doesn't really make sense, and also it's not really correct, but totally we're in love.
Yeah. So there's no one looking through your eyes.
No,
But then, could you say what is looking through these eyes?
nobody, and also nobody, nothing's looking up through eyes is already concept assumption. I don't know, but just even I don't know if it's looking. Even I don't say that. It's just this, just what it's happening. Even no looking. Looking also seems to be like someone's looking, being looked. Even that also disappear.
Yeah.
I can only say this.
This. Yeah, because everything that we put on top of this is another concept.
Yeah, even that.
Yeah, even this is the concept itself, but therefore it's
Even
impossible
that.
to describe
Impossible
this.
to describe. Oh, really, this is impossible to describe, because everything, nothing can be away from this to look at. It's just everything and nothing.
Yeah.
Very, very simple. But we try to understand through the concept and through the intellectual. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And then nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So, is there a world?
World?
Is there a world that we live in?
I just that people say that the world, because again, maybe world means like it depends on someone's interpretation.
Yeah.
To me, world is like I was Japanese, so world outside like a different country or something.
Ah, okay.
And also in English and Japanese. So like interpretation, there is no world. There is just this. Always this. Because there is no time and space, and you are not there. Just this. Even how can I say you're not there? You mean like as individual person is not there.
No.
So I only can say everything and nothing.
So many concepts then change, like death, reincarnation, karma.
Yeah. Because I practiced yoga before that,
Yeah.
so that reincarnation, karma is really strong in yoga field.
Okay.
And still I still teach yoga, so people talk about it, but I just don't know, and also no.
Because
no
people,
interest.
even the eye wants to look for something better, even in the life hereafter.
Yeah.
Because when I reincarnate, then
Yeah, I just this for here personal happiness is no interest, no longer interested in it, because that's the problem. As long as you're looking for your personal happiness, never gonna get out the suffering of the contraction, because you feel that the person. That's I say the problem, nothing's problem, because everything's happening perfectly, and also that's seemingly suffering's happening, but it's not happening.
yeah.
Because that's
It's only happening in thoughts, you think?
yeah, it's even it happening in, even doesn't say in the thoughts. Maybe apparently suffering's appearing, but it's really not happening. It's just maybe life is like life will become apparent suffering and then appearing, but no one in there. It's just can I say it's just the suffering?
Yeah, suffering happening.
Suffering happening,
Seemingly.
but seemingly,
Yeah.
even I don't see it. I say I, but it's not Naho. I
But
don't know why.
when people may come up to you with a terrible story, like I lost someone or I am sick or whatever,
Yeah.
Do you feel still empathy for someone?
Yeah, yeah. But then no strong belief in it. The moment I naturally uh, naturally say something, but then there is no belief, and also their life is happening perfectly, and also there's because I don't see anyone, so the person saying doesn't, it's not suffering any, that's not, they're not suffering, it's just life is happening, so it's just the perfect.
Yeah.
That suffering also perfect, nothing is personal. Even pain happens, that's also just the pain. If you identify with your pain and someone's looking at the pain, then becomes suffering. But just the pain is just, everything's not personal and everything's not separate.
Yeah. Because most people think it's my pain.
Yeah.
They also think it's my fault maybe,
Yeah.
and I have to do something to get rid of that.
Yeah. And also that if someone asks me the advice or something,
Yeah.
and if I give if I give advice back, then I'm supporting that story.
Yeah.
And first of all, first of all, I don't really believe any story, and secondly, supporting the person. It means the cause of the suffering is person, and supporting that.
Yeah.
That also, that's not really interest here. So, and also everything's happening perfectly, and I don't really see a problem.
So, do feelings of fear or sadness still arise?
Yeah, everything arises, but just sadness, just fear, and that also love. Everything is so, how can I explain this? So intimate and so close, and that's because I remember I tried to be so close to my mom, but it's too distant, two bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
But that this is a total, just intimacy with everything.
Total intimacy with everything. That's
Everything,
beautiful.
everything. Yeah. But it sounds like I have intimacy, but it's not. There is only intimacy. It's strange, very strange.
But for a lot of people, these questions often come up in talk. They say, okay, this is life happening, but then they say, but you see it through these eyes and I see it through these eyes.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that?
That's the. I don't see it because I don't. I don't see it. It's just this. What is happening is left. When me falls away, only left is what is happening. Nobody is seeing. Seeing takes place. Seeing takes position. I am here, you are there. That's already two position. The two separation.
Yeah.
That's not it. That's not it. That's not what I'm talking about. What is happening? Me, what is happening is everything, nothing. There is no position.
I totally agree on that, but now I'm gonna play the devil for a while. Because then they say yes, but when a bee is sticking you, then you feel the pain. Huh? So how would you respond to that?
No, actually, there is only pain.
There's only pain.
Yeah.
Okay, but then there is pain.
Then I naturally I say I got pain and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. But then that's the pain.
But they would say, okay, but then maybe there's no you inside.
Yeah.
But then it's that body in which there is pain.
Yeah, body has a strong pain.
Yeah.
But that body also imagination.
Yeah. Okay.
So then only pain left
Yeah.
in nothingness.
Yeah.
Everything come out
And
nothingness.
even pain is the
Yeah.
imagination. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it feels so real,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the aliveness. Everything's so alive.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
seems so real. I mean,
Yes, it's
yeah.
so real.
It is really as if there are two people sitting on chairs and it's as if. You know? Yeah.
This is a total mystery.
Yeah.
Mystery, yeah.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Another thing, me dynamic, me wants to know everything. Me wants to know, and then me wants to hold on to something, and then me wants to get something.
Yeah.
But actually, me has no control. Me has no power at all. Everything's happening by itself. That's so strange. Me think that when you believe that me, but I don't even see that someone's me. I see that me is like a dynamic happening.
Yeah.
It's seemingly happening to someone's body, but actually I just see as a dynamic. I don't really see someone's pain or someone's me.
Okay.
I just see as a dynamic.
And you don't use the word consciousness?
Not at all. What is consciousness? I don't know.
No, we don't know. But like say Walter Keers, he was the first teacher who actually brought this Advaita to Holland. He spoke a lot about awareness, and he would say that there's awareness happening now, because there is awareness of, let's say, the grass or words or sounds, but that there's no person in this awareness.
Yeah.
So he would say awareness is just happening.
Right. And maybe that's the only different word they use. Maybe we are talking about the same thing, but for here, the awareness means like something aware in something. That means object has to be exist. Aware object and awareness, so already two.
Yeah, true.
So it's really different from like someone's seeing it. And also I think a lot of people stuck with like an awakening. If you say that's in total liberation and awakening, if you talk about differentiate it, because awakening is like a lot of different kind of experiences. I think people stuck in like aware in something without thoughts, like trying to aware what's happening or nothing's here, or try to look at.
Yeah.
But still, that's me dynamic. Me try to know something, and me try to aware something. But then already that's two. It's not comfortable.
Yes, but I think it's just concepts we use then. But then Walter Keers would probably say yes, but there's still the awareness of that. Then there is a you trying to be aware.
Yeah.
You know? It's always it's maybe just everything and nothing is a more clear approach, because then there's really nothing to grasp.
Yeah.
I remember Buddha would say everything is the unborn, of the unmanifested, because if you approach it in a negative way, you can't grasp the unmanifested. It's like that's why Advaita is the not two and not the one. And that's so clever.
Yeah. And then this is seemingly happening, but nothing's happening because it comes from nothing.
Yeah. It all comes from
so
nothing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's so mysterious.
Sitting here with, and then that's maybe a difficulty, how to pronounce your name in English.
Yeah.
Jan Kouwhoorn?
Should be John, I think. And Kouwhoorn is a name I have used from when I was 18. Of course, it's a literal translation into English. But in Dutch it's pronounced Jan Kouwhoorn.
We talked before sometimes in Dutch.
Yeah.
And now for our channel Advaita FM in English. This was inspired by a guy who inspired you, Alexander Smith. He did meetings in the 80s and 90s in Holland where you saw him. And he sometimes suddenly started talking in English.
Yeah.
Was that for people sitting in the audience who came from far? Or?
Sometimes he would have English guests, and then he would automatically switch to English just in a snap.
Yeah.
No problem at all. And for the Dutch people, well, most Dutch people speak English fairly well, or at least they can understand it fairly well. So we hardly noticed it ever.
Is there a difference in expressing this message between the different languages? You now started translating a book from English to Dutch.
Yeah. The Dutch language needs more words.
More words?
Yeah. when we translate a book from English to Dutch, then I think it's 20% longer. So that's what I'm noticing now. Sometimes I read a sentence, 10 words or so, and there's no short translation in Dutch possible. So then you need to use more words, 15, 20 words sometimes. So that's different. But in terms of what you're trying to say or to transfer to people, it makes no difference at all.
And what is the best way to hear this message? In your own language, or can you say, if you read a book like I Am Dead by Nisargadatta in English, it's better?
I've always read everything in Dutch, and I Am was translated in Dutch by Walter Keers. So to me, Dutch was the only thing that I read. But I think nowadays, most people, especially younger people, speak English perfectly. All movies are in English. Almost all pop music is English. When you go on the internet, almost everything is English. So should be no problem at all, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a study I read in a psychology magazine. They talked about how people get in a different state of mind when they have to talk another language that they're not used to. So could it give more distance between what is said and what you perceive, or?
Yeah, I think when you speak in your native language, you can use all the little nuances that you are used to, and I use puns regularly, woordspelingen in Dutch, and that's much more difficult in another language.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it gets the listener out of his or her comfort zone. So it's more difficult for them to make up things and to pretend to tell something other than what they are really trying to ask or to tell. So I think it depends. I don't know. All my satsangs are in Dutch until now, and that's been 17 years now. So apparently for me, Dutch is the way to go.
Yeah. Never people from England or
No.
Maybe this is a way to get people get to know you. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What age did you get interested in books from India or spirituality?
Well, at first I had problems with breathing, hyperventilation, anxiety attacks.
How old were you then?
23.
About 30 years ago.
23, 24. About 10 years ago, yeah. 30. So the first thing I did was I visited my how do you call it in English, doctor? Anyway, physician, yeah. And he told me, well, it's hyperventilation, and you can breathe in and out a paper bag or something. Well, that wasn't enough for me. So the first thing I did was get as much information about it as I could, and then I stumbled upon books about yoga and breathing exercises, and so after that I discovered that yoga was much more than only breathing exercises and stretch exercises. So I stumbled upon a book by Walter Keers in Dutch, and that was about Jnana Yoga, and then I read I Am Dead by Nisargadatta. Now, that's how it went.
Yeah.
And eventually I discovered in Holland Advaita teacher Alexander Smith. So I rang him up and asked if I could come. And he said, well, that's okay.
If you don't believe in UFOs.
UFOs. Yeah, it's a well-known story in the Netherlands, because I always tell it, but the first thing he asked me was, you're welcome, but only if you're not searching for UFOs or gnomes or no.
Yeah.
Well, so it was very comforting for me that he said so, because I didn't know where I had gotten myself into. So
Yeah.
I didn't. Is it
A cult?
a cult or I didn't
Yeah.
know. So that was very reassuring to me.
Yeah. And that was late 80s? Mid 80s?
Late 80s. I think I was 29 and I was born in 62, so
Yeah.
you can do the math.
Yeah. How come Alexander's way of teaching appealed so much to you?
Because it was non-conformistic. I never met anyone before who could express everything so directly and with so much humor and so much honesty and integrity. And he was in no way everything he said was straight from the heart. He didn't try he was no pleaser or something. If you were not in the right place, then you were sent away directly.
No double agenda?
No double agenda. And it was really the first time that I met someone like that, someone like him, who behaved in a way that I couldn't have predicted.
Yeah.
I had an idea about gurus that they were, I don't know what enlightened behavior is, but I had a kind of picture in my mind about how that would look, and of course that was completely different with him.
Yeah. You didn't visit his meetings very long. You've been there for
3 months.
3 months.
3 months.
And was there a moment that he came to you and said, Jan, you're free to go, you've seen what you have to see, you've heard what you have to hear?
Oh, no.
No?
No, it didn't work that way. He always said, the only one who can tell if he or her has seen it are you, yourself. So you didn't have to ask him if you had seen it, or you didn't have to, there was no confirmation needed from him. You just know, and then you go.
But how do you know?
It's very, it's not in a way that people are used to what they say, I know something. Usually they mean by memory. I can recall it, so I know. I know where I live. I know the name of my children. I can recall it. But when you're in love, for example, and I would ask you, how do you know? Then there's not. You cannot say, oh, I remember that I am in love. It's not very wise to say that to your woman.
Yeah.
I think I know that I love you. I seem to recall that I love you.
You love someone or you don't?
You just know.
Yeah.
You just know. So how is not applicable. Why is not applicable. You just know.
Yeah.
And maybe it's more because of the absence of a lot of things than the presence of some things.
What did fall away? Questions?
Questions fall away. All cramps about who I was, what I needed to become, what I should undertake. All that was blown out of my system. And blown is not really the right word. It's more like fade out or something. So I didn't see thunder and lightning or all those things that I had read. I just experienced kind of a fade out in which all those things disappeared.
And people in your family, did they see a change in you? Did you become more lovable? Did you become more, or all things in the world?
No. No.
Still the same.
I kept it secret for my family and
they knew
friends.
But they knew you were visiting Alexander.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not something that I thought of advertising to anyone.
Is that maybe
really
an advice for the people who are listening or watching this?
Well,
keep this to yourself.
The danger is in Advaita there's a danger that you look at someone who is called an enlightened being or a realized master or something. You hear his or her story, and then you think, okay, so that's the way to go.
I have to become like him.
I have to become. So it's not a prerequisite that you keep it to yourself. But when people ask me, and I say, the danger is if you tell everyone about it, that people start asking questions to you, and then you are going to explain something that you really do not know yet, and that's
and that's what's going on.
That's what's going on anywhere on the internet. Everyone can copy paste.
Yeah.
So it's no problem at all posting things online and pretending to know things that you really don't. So for me it was absolutely no question that I was going to tell anyone anything about Advaita until I knew what it was for myself.
Yeah.
And there is that knowing again. Remembering Advaita is very easy.
Yeah.
Quoting Advaita masters, very easy. But knowing, doubtlessly, for yourself, that's a completely other story. I've never understood why people would do that. It never occurred to me to say anything about Advaita before I had the story clear for myself.
Well, the explanation is, in my case and other cases I know, you get so affected or touched by this message of freedom that you cannot stop talking about it. And I remember the first year I heard about it, I said, this has to be on the evening news. We have to tell everybody at 8 o'clock. The first item on the
and
the
then
journal.
you become a missionary or something.
But you get back from that because you know that there are not so much people interested in this.
Nobody gives a damn.
No, they think, well, what you talk? Oh yeah, nice. I'll look into that later. I started sending these little books by Hans Laurentius. I found it on the website.
Giving it to friends.
Yeah, sending it everywhere, and people.
And the result is that you lose your friends and you don't get invited to parties anymore.
They think he's getting completely nuts.
No, I was very hesitant even after the story became clear to me. There was no doubt in my mind about not giving satsang. It was only after I heard that Alexander died that something started to happen on that front. I made a small web page about what Advaita was. So I started getting reactions and emails and invitations, and that's how it started.
Late 90s when Alexander passed away.
Yeah, 98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is this something you can know through the internet, or is it necessary to see you in person or go to a living satsang or?
It's absolutely necessary to see a living person, and then you should go to me. That's absolutely.
And bring all your money. Yeah.
No, it's not necessary. But my metaphor is always, it's not necessary that you use a car to get from Amsterdam to Apeldoorn. It's not necessary. Only it's quicker.
Yeah.
So
can you do this on your own?
Yes, you can. There are examples of that. Ramana never visited any master. Your friend Nikki never visited any master, never searched for anything, as I understood.
Yeah.
So it's possible, but it's it's rare. You don't see it often. So my advice is, if you can find someone where you have that connection, it's the same wavelength, then you should stay there.
And how do I know if you are my guru?
Same story. First time I visited Alexander, I was scared shitless, but there was no doubt that he was my master.
And you couldn't reproduce thoughts that guaranteed you that. It was just a knowing. Again,
I knew.
Yeah, like
I knew.
When you see a beautiful woman, you know this is the one.
Keep away from her.
or I don't want to get in touch with her. Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a word in the Sanskrit language for this kind of knowing, and we don't have that in Dutch.
What's that word?
In Sanskrit, it's jnana. You have jnana, which is knowledge without memory, okay? Which is identical to awareness. Mm-hmm. You just see, you notice things without thinking, translations, analyzing, and so on. That's a different word. It's immediate. You can't switch it on or switch it off. It's there, always. The other knowing is called ajnana in Sanskrit, with the A mm-hmm. prepended, is often denial in that language, like in Dutch. Knowing with memory is guarded like a sort of lower level of knowing than the immediate knowing. Yeah. When people visit me, then most of the time they like to speak about knowing memory and how and why and stories and and you don't hear about the immediate kind of knowing until you get involved with Advaita.
Could you say the example is I know how an orange tastes or an apple, mm-hmm. but I don't have to remember that. I just know when I taste an apple, that's an apple. And I also know when the apple is bad. I taste, it's bad. I don't have to remember, this is how a bad apple tastes like. You know immediately.
Usually the reaction of the body would be throw it away immediately, and then later on you think, that was... So thinking is always... Afterwards, behind, too late. It's a beautiful instrument, but to know who you are, it's not the right instrument. The only instrument I know of is the direct kind of knowing, which I'm talking about all the time.
And can this thinking machine, or however you call it, be a hindrance in knowing who you are?
No, but it's like having a shadow. If all interest is going to the shadow, and you think it can harm you, and you try to get rid of it, then you will do the strangest things like jump up and down or trying to run from it, and mm-hmm. you'll notice that it's always there. And then the next discovery is, it's there, okay, but it can't influence me in any way. Thinking is the same. A lot of people who visit me ask, I want to quiet my thinking, I want to have lesser thoughts, I want to experience the silence of something spiritual, all those kinds of things. My response usually is, take a nap. When you take a nap, then your thoughts are gone. It's not a question of thinking lesser thoughts or thinking other things or whatever. Only thing you need to see is that you are aware of the thoughts, and that awareness is something that is completely spontaneously, automatically direct, without someone doing it. That's all there is. So thoughts come and go, and in the meanwhile I stay the same, like a movie screen or something, or like you can call it whatever. Every time you give it a name, you are creating new thoughts. That's the problem in Advaita, of course. We can only point towards it, but we can never make it into an object or something. Awareness can't be seen. And you can see objects, but you can't see the seeing itself. That's impossible. So as long as you keep searching for that, or you're trying to achieve that, then you'll fall into the same trap time and time again. Some people can spend their whole life doing that and get crazy.
Yeah.
Eventually, yeah, of course. It's not a way. It's not the instrument. You're using the wrong instrument.
Yeah. You're using a guitar to play violin.
Yeah. For example.
Yeah.
So it's not working. And intelligent would be that you can kind of an overview about all those mechanisms that are not working, and that you can step back and can see, I'm using the wrong instruments, I'm using the same trick over and over and over again, and it's not working, and when it's working it's only temporarily. So maybe I'm having the wrong attitude about this enlightenment business. Yeah. Maybe I'll have to try another way.
So Jan, can I take some jargon, some words out of the Advaita teaching, which everybody throws around?
Yeah.
And I think also on satsang with you, and they come to you and they say, for example, tell me about free will. That I have to know. Do I have free will or not? What is mostly your response?
Well, it depends on the situation and who's asking, and if they ask it for the first time or for the 100th time, or because if you say there's no free will, then the conclusion usually is okay. So then I can go sit on the couch and let all things happen and do nothing, and
no responsibility.
Yeah, so that usually leads to non-responsibility, apathy, laziness, and so on. And if I sense that with someone, then my answer will not be there's no free will. So then my answer will be, of course you can choose. You chose to come to satsang today, didn't you? And when we're ready, you'll choose to go to a house or to whatever, and we choose to drive on the right side, and we choose to and so on.
Yeah.
But you can go in all directions with that question. One teacher of mine, Walter Keers, always said free will is a contradiction in terms, because when you want something you're not free anymore. So free will and free are mutually exclusive, he said. And well, you can say that, because when the thought I want this or that arises, who made the choice to let the thought arise? So you can always make a step back and ask yourself that question: where did it come from? Do you choose in the morning to wake up? No, it just happens. So you can just as easily say everything is spontaneously, and there can be a lot of activity, and you can be very productive and you can have lots of energy and do all kinds of things, and then still see that everything happens by itself, and not because I am doing it. So there's not one fitting answer for everyone to this question.
Yeah. Is that in general that for every question there is a different response that depends on who's sitting in front of you?
Yeah, and language and questions and answers are relative. They are just as well objects in awareness as every other object.
Yeah.
So when someone asks me, Amsterdam, is that to the north? Then the answer could be yes, depending on where I am. Or it could be no if I'm on the north side, and then the answer would be no, it's to the south, or to the west, or to the east.
So in a
same kind of thing.
No, let's say things that stand alone, that are
no absolute answers.
Yeah, on the thinking level.
On the thinking level, because they are intrinsically relative, because it is thinking. There's not one answer that I can give to everyone, every time, at every moment. It doesn't work that way.
Isn't that a very tiring thing to do then, satsang?
Well, no, for me it's just an appeal to my creativity to tell the story different every time. And I've been a music teacher for 30 years or so that's kind of normal to me.
Yeah.
Feels natural. And for the people that visit me, there's the possibility to discover that, hey, last week someone asked the same question, but then you gave another answer.
Yeah.
and I get that sometimes. I asked you this last month, and then you gave me a completely other answer.
And they think, now I got him.
Yeah, now I got him. He's contradicting himself.
Yeah,
I have to contradict myself all the time because that's the only thing that's possible. If you know that thinking and answers are relative, always relative. You could just as well ask, what's the best way to raise my children? There's no answer to that. Sometimes you have to be strict. Sometimes you have to let go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you... Not one absolute answer to that. What's the best way to get happy, to find happiness in life?
That's different for everybody.
Different for everybody. Some people just want to have lots of money, other people would like to have lots of power, or both. They would like to have, or some people don't need anything to be happy. It's a sort of natural state of mind to them.
Yeah.
So that's a bit the same story. The questions that I get are, let's say, limited to maybe 30, 40. And essentially it always boils down to who am I?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only question, that's what I always say. In fact, that's the only real question you can ask. When you take a step back and you ask yourself, how am I going to solve the problems that I have in my life now? Then the first question should be, who is the I that I am going to solve the problems for? It's always the question, who am I? If you skip that one, then the rest becomes nonsense because you are undertaking actions for someone that you really don't know who or what it is.
Yeah.
So that's the basic problem in Advaita, and not just Advaita, but for everyone.
And is the I the troublemaker?
Yeah, it would seem so, eh?
That's it. When I, for 40 years or so for life experience, I think every time there was a problem in my life, there was this I who said,
involved.
This isn't good enough. This has to improve.
Yeah.
You were too fat. You were too lazy. She's too fat. She's too lazy.
Yeah. The way I explain it is I make a distinction between problems and conflicts. Problems will always be there. When you're hungry, you have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you feel hungry, that's a problem, and it gets solved by eating something.
It's like a little puzzle.
Yeah. So you get all desires, all fears can become problems if there's thinking involved, and then you're going to solve that problem.
Yeah.
So that's not a big thing.
Yeah.
Conflict is when I make up an ideal situation and believe that there is a real possibility that ideal situation that I've made up can happen, that I can make that happen. So let's say I'm scared, that's a feeling. There's no problem in fear. Fear in itself is not the problem. When I think, hey, I'm scared, what should I do? Yeah. Then, maybe there are ways to solve it. But when I think I'm scared, but I mustn't be scared because I'm a boy and boys are not scared, and I should not be scared. or I am scared and I don't want to be scared ever again because I have already experienced so much fear. And then I start to believe that it really should not be that way. I make up an ideal situation in which I am never scared again, in which I've developed all kinds of methods to not get scared or to make it go away as soon as possible in the case that I am scared. That's where the conflicts start, as far as I'm concerned. I really believe that I should not be scared, but I am scared. The stronger the belief is, the stronger the difference between the projected ideal situation and the situation as it is, the bigger the conflict. And if you experience conflicts all day long, then sooner or later you're going to experience a kind of crisis or whatever. So, first problem in Advaita is that you are going to solve that conflict. Then you're using exactly the same principle and strategy. I have all these conflicts, they shouldn't be there, so how am I going to make same problem?
And suddenly there's Advaita and you think, hey, that's the medicine for all my conflicts.
Usually the first reaction. This is it. Now I have found. And sooner or later you're going to discover that Advaita is not the final method of living, doing things, behaving.
It's no way of life.
No, you can't. It's not. Well, in Dutch you would say toegepaste kennis, applied science of applied science knowledge. It's just a way of telling how things, who you are, really. That simple. So, if people ask me what do I get from it, from Advaita, what can I do with it, then the answer is you'll get nothing, and you can't do nothing with it. Only maybe seeing through all misunderstandings in your life. So in fact you're losing things. You're losing images in your mind that are not correct. You're losing ideas about yourself that are just not accurate.
And what are the dangers of Advaita?
Danger is that you could say that some people get distracted too soon because of all the teachers there are and all the books there are and all the videos there are on YouTube and all the web pages. It's very easy to it could get superficial, something with which you can impress your friends,
a hobby, a
lifestyle, or a lifestyle of just using the intellect, just
see my bookshelf. Here, all the books.
I've got Spinoza, I've got Kant, I've got Nietzsche, I've got Nisargadatta. That can become.
But is there real danger? Are there people in mental institutes who read about it, heard about it, saw this, or went through it too soon, or didn't have a right someone who led the way for them?
That's why I say that having a teacher or a guru is better than just trying to do this by yourself, because at the time that I got involved, I still had those anxiety attacks, and that's really not at all nice and spiritual and enlightening and funny and fulfilling and so on. So they always say in Advaita it's better when everything is going reasonably well to begin with Advaita then, but of course the need is not there because everything is going. Usually, people start with it from some kind of crisis. This could be any kind of crisis, but usually it starts that way. If you look at teachers anywhere and you ask them how did it start with you, then the answer you usually get is I had hit rock bottom, or I was completely heartbroken, or insecure, or suicidal. Or,
is this something, we once talked about this, my friend Paul and I, there's this famous Dutch singer who committed suicide, Anthony Kamerling, and I know he read a lot of books about this and so on. Could you, I know you can't say this thing applies for everything, but could you say that someone who is suicidal and gets knowledge of this, maybe this can turn things around for them?
Good.
But it's no assurance.
No, the one of the truths of life is there are no guarantees. Never. Only guarantee that we can make up are thought-induced, as I would call it. So we believe that we can create all kinds of fallbacks, maybe religious, or if I pray every day, or whatever. But the reality of life is that there are no guarantees. There is not one thing certain in life. Everything, your daughters, your father, your mother, your friends, your wife, your husband, you don't know if they will be there tomorrow. That's not guaranteed. Of course we assume, but more than that's not possible. Yeah. And in Advaita, it's the same thing. There are no guarantees. The only thing you can, I hesitate to say learn from your guru, but discover with his help or her help is who you are. And even that is not guaranteed, because there are lots of people who don't discover it. But that's what it's all about. So when someone comes to me and I sense that they are trying to get some kind of guarantee, then I usually immediately tell them this story. Yeah. My life, same thing, no guarantees. I don't know if this body will be there tomorrow. I don't. The only thing I know for sure is that with every phenomenon, I am the observer of that phenomenon. That's the only thing I can be sure of.
Yeah, I remember your teacher Alexander Smith once told in one of his teachings that, or one of his satsangs, you cannot hide. There's no place to hide. No. Is that the same what you were telling now?
Same message. Yeah. But we do try.
To hide from life.
We do try.
Yeah.
And that can be in school, study hard, because then success later on is guaranteed. In sports, give everything you got, because then success will come. Getting married, relationships, give it everything you got, because then you will be happy. Yeah. And all that is true, but it will be relative happiness, relative success, because it's in the world of the duality. Yeah. So as long as you know that, there's no problem at all. And so then yes, you can study hard, and yes, you can have a nice job, you can have a nice wife, you can have nice children, all no problem, except it's not for eternity. Yeah. And when you know that, then it becomes playful again, which it always was, but you forgot it.
Yeah. But this thing which gets us searching is that we know there's another kind of happiness, there's another kind of what's the right way to say? Another kind of
You already know what you are, but you have forgotten it. And because of all the methods that people use to become happy, at a certain day you start to realize that it's not that I am not trying hard enough, or it's not that I did not find the right method yet. It's because of something else. What that something else is, they usually cannot tell until they read a book about Advaita, or they see a video, or anything. That was the effect with me. The first book that I read was immediately, bam, this is it.
Which book
without
was that?
doubt, Yoga and the Art of Relaxing.
By which?
Multipliers.
Multipliers, yeah.
And I understood nothing from what I read, but
you knew?
I knew that I stumbled upon something very essential.
Yeah.
So,
again,
in order for that to take place, you must know already, because otherwise recognition would not be possible.
Yeah.
You have to know already.
Yeah.
Only, we forget, and we learn to strive for other things.
Could you say Advaita is like an anti-course, in the sense of normally when you do a course, let's say English language, you add something to yourself. You add new words, you learn.
Yeah.
Is Advaita the other way around? Just
can be
unlearning?
in the beginning, but I think it's more courses, striving for things and searching are not the enemy. But the first reaction of people who come in contact with Advaita usually is, okay, so that's all wrong, I shouldn't do that anymore. It's a little bit like in puberty. Yes, first you believe everything, you try everything, and you obey your parents, and then suddenly you're going the complete opposite way, which is still a reaction to
the other.
A system or books or a course or maybe a fashion. Advaita is more like, you see the first phase in which you are obeying everything and following everything. Then you see the second phase in which you are reacting against everything and oppose everything, say contradictory things. And the last phase is integration. Balance. So yes, I can follow the fashion, but I don't need to. But if I do, perfectly okay. So it's not, there's not this system on the one side and Advaita on the other side. Advaita is more at a meta level, I would say.
Yeah, I think Alexander talked about it also. Everything needs a balance. But is it a logical way that most people who get in touch with this subject, that they strived and tried for years, like in my case, to get everything they want in the world. They see that's not fulfilling. Then suddenly you get to a point where you start wearing the same clothes for years and thinking about, I don't need to earn any money. I don't need to go to big concert events. They're not going to make me happy. And then
exactly the same thing, but then turned around.
Yeah. And then but is that a way for the most people, or are people going from extremely searching it in the world to balance at the next level?
And usually the first one.
Yeah.
So they have to go through all the phases until you finally reach the phase wherein you discover that it is not a phase.
Yeah.
And at the end of the journey, usually you discover that you've never really left. But that discovery is not possible if you don't take the journey.
Yeah.
But for some people it's possible to immediately see where the importance lies in Advaita and to skip all the processes.
Was it in your case?
A little bit. My teacher always said you can go from the outside to the inside. That's what most people do. So when the outside, he meant duality, phenomena, feelings, thoughts. And then his advice was to, with everything, say, I'm not my thinking, I'm not my feeling, I'm not the personality, I'm not And if you recognize with every phenomenon that you're not only that, then at the end what you will end up with is what you are, which is not something that you can see, which is not something that can appear and disappear and so on. But the trouble with that method is that there are rather a lot of phenomena to research.
Yeah.
So the second method, he said, was to go from inside to outside and immediately recognize what you are, which he called consciousness or awareness, or well, any word will do. And that struck me, because I thought it's much more intelligent. And I go on all day saying I am not this, I am not that. I felt rather cold to me. Those two methods I don't advise to people in my satsangs. I usually give the advice: if you want to do something, then say all day long, "That's me too, and that's me too, and I am the personality too, and not just the personality, not limited to the personality. No, I am the personality too." So that's a way of it's warmer. To me, it's much warmer than saying all day long that I'm not my wife, I'm not my children.
Yeah, netty, not this, not that.
Yeah, netty is almost always explained wrong, I think. The translation in English would be, I think, not this, not that, not both, and not neither one of them.
Yeah,
I think.
But still, when you say neither this nor that, that's a difference. It feels for me than not this or that, because neither, you don't make any distinction. It's like it's not just this or just that.
That's the translation I use.
Yeah.
I'm not just this. I'm not just that.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's a difference.
Included.
Yeah.
And not excluded.
Yeah.
There's another danger in that fight is that you become just the
observer.
seer, the observer, and not the world.
Yeah.
So then there you are, very spiritual in your position of the observer, and then you're going to say things like, "Oh, that just happens in consciousness. I lost my child, but I am observing it, and
you get the untouchable. You get untouchable out of the, you get out of this world, just like an observer.
It's what's called the Advaita shuffle, and you're not responsive anymore, and you're not in touch anymore, and you're completely disconnected, I would say, from everything there is.
Jan, there's an example that gets into my mind. I'm curious about your reaction to this. For me, it's like a difference that, let's say 10 years ago, I walked through a store and I saw all beautiful things. And this I want to have, and that I want to have, and this I want to have. And now after 10 years I can walk to the same store and just enjoy the beautiful things without having to possess them. Yeah. Without having to add them to me.
So the conflict is gone.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the whole story. What I used to, I'm a musician, how I used to study was, in fact studying was hell, until you can play the piece. And then the fun starts.
Yeah.
That has changed completely into studying and enjoying just what you hear, what you feel. I'm a piano player.
Yeah.
And at the end, the result is that you can play a piece. But in the meanwhile, there's no conflict. There's not someone trying to achieve something. It's just me and music and hearing and feeling.
Yeah.
And the result is better music.
Yeah.
Because there's no doer. Everyone who's ever been to a concert knows that if you see something on the stage and you see just ego trying to show off or impress, then that stands in the way of enjoying for the audience the music and the joy and so on. And if you experience ego not standing in the way, there's not someone trying to achieve something, but someone just being music, then it's a completely different story.
could you say that in trying to impress people, there's also no enjoyment for you? Because
but you think that it works that way.
Yeah, that they should enjoy me trying to impress them.
My teacher used to say that's the kindergarten level. Or a level, look ma, no hands.
On the bicycle.
That's the level that you are. And if that's the case, then no Advaita teacher will tell you, that doesn't that's not okay.
Yeah.
So no, it's just you just observe that apparently that's my situation, and then you go from there. So never from what it should be, but always what is it? What's it that I'm seeing? What is it that I'm experiencing? Am I being childish? Yeah, I'm being childish. That's the case. No conflict. And then it's just childishness.
Played out. Be childish.
Yeah. And then it's playful again, and it's light again, and it's relative again.
But in trying to impress people, you can. In my instance, I've been doing that for maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
And
the last thing that will leave you is vanity, my teacher always said. And
want to be something special.
But because everybody wants that, it's not special at all. It's very common.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be special, so it's not special at all.
Then my friend Paul Smith says, well, that's just sexual selection. That's the same like the bird with the big feathers, all the colors, trying to impress the other sex.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's how it works. And as a result, you see in the animal part of the strange creations of birds with very large, or how do you call them, crabs with very large claws, because the female like large claws, or birds with large feathers and
beautiful singing. Sounds.
So all the same thing.
Yeah. So again, no conflict. If you see that I'm trying to impress the other sex, it's just going on.
Just what it is.
Yeah.
But usually people will make up a story that now that's not the case. It's just me being enthusiastic or something, or being
the best version of myself.
So.
Yeah. But it seems to me that honesty is a big thing in Advaita. That being honest at first to yourself about reasons,
integrity, honesty, absence of vanity. Yeah, those are key things in Advaita. So when you get that from a teacher, then you know that you're in the right place.
And does it ring an alarm bell for you? When someone like Muji or Gangaji get a special name, though you're still young, is that still a thing of vanity that teachers take on a glorious name?
Yeah, well, it would differ from case to case, but I think the tradition is from India that you get a special guru name. So if you come from that tradition, then of course, then you have that name. I never got a name from Alexander.
Alexander got his name from Nisargadatta.
From Nisargadatta, yeah. And that was because he was in India. Sri Parabrahmadatta Maharaj.
And that means? The voice?
Sri means something like honorable.
Mm-hmm.
Also Maharaj means something like great. Maha is great, and Raj is king or emperor or something like that in Sanskrit. And Parabrahmadatta is datta means given by. Para means above, and Brahma is the god of the god Brahma. So that would translate to given by something that is beyond Brahma. Well, there you have it.
That's a
and
way
I'm just young.
Yeah, that's a way to introduce yourself at parties.
Yeah.
But still also no conflict.
No, my teacher always made fun with his own name, by the way. He would say, okay, hi, I am Alexander, but you can call me Sri Parabrahmadatta Maharaj.
That's also a thing.
Turn it around.
Yeah. You do that also in your satsangs, and now also in this interview, Alexander did it, humor. What's the thing that humor gets around in this Advaita circles? Tony Parsons makes people laugh.
Humor is one of the nicest ways to express the reality of things. Sometimes you hear in Dutch, we've got an expression, je moet kunnen relativeren. You have to be able to put things in perspective. But that's nonsense. Things are already in perspective, things are already relative. So what nicer way to express it with humor, because then it's immediately it's obvious in humor. Nothing is sacred. When you use humor, you can make a joke to your boss or a joke to whatever. In Holland, we make jokes about the royalties and the politicians,
the church,
everything. It's a nice thing, and it has the element of surprise. You have to be creative to use it. Not all people can say that. So. And on the other hand, it's also a way of when you give satsang and it lasts for let's say 2 hours or so, and you would not use one joke, then you tend to lose the attention of people. And that's a little bit the music teacher in me. When I have a group in front of me, I always try to keep track of what's the energy level. Are people listening or are they falling asleep? So then you can use something which surprises them to get them back again to listen.
And still, that's a mechanism that works also on the regular media. At the end of the year, we always have comedy shows on TV where some comedian is telling us, for me, for about 1.5 hours, don't take this stuff too serious.
Yeah.
It's all just
entertainment. Yeah. There is a video by what's his name again? Bill Hicks. It's called "It's Just a Ride." People can look it up on YouTube.
He was a comedian who talks about this stuff also. In a way.
Some people have remembered that it's just a ride, but some people have forgotten and they take things too seriously. And there is nothing against seriousness, but when it becomes a cramp or when it becomes something in your life that causes conflict everywhere, then it's the wrong kind of seriousness.
So how come you want to shoot me if I make a joke about your prophet in the Islam? They are very...
that's what you get when you take things serious in the wrong way. In my view, that's how you get. If I have an opinion and somebody else has another opinion, then usually what happens in my case is, you could say it this way, but I can see your point of view and you can say it your way, and that's the end of it. No escalation. What you see in the world around us is that there's lots of escalation, and it always has to do with a kind of belief system, or political systems, ways how you should live your life. If that escalates, then that's proof that people recognize the relativity of all the opinions that there are. So
I have to defend my truth because you don't take it serious, in my opinion.
Guarantees, same thing again. I have built my set of rules for life to guarantee safety, happiness, and so on. If I can get as much people as possible to believe the same thing, then there must be some truth in it, because everybody is believing it. So always when you experience kind of missionary, I would say missionary position, but that's something else, I think. Trying to gather people around some kind of system.
Going door to door, telling people advice.
Exactly. Well, that's I find that suspicious. it's an argument by number. Yeah? The more people believe it, the more truth it will have.
Yeah, it must
something
be
like
true because millions of people believe in
that.
it.
Yeah, and that's why Advaita will never become a big club, because it's not a club.
Yeah.
You don't have to become a member. You don't have to be on every satsang. If you visit my satsangs for 3 months and then I don't see you for a year, then I will not ask, hey, where have you been, and
how many
I missed
children?
you, and so on. So there are no obligations.
When someone comes to your meetings and says, this is all bullshit, what you're talking about.
So what are you doing here?
Yeah, that's
would be my answer.
response. Not, okay, let me tell you why it's not bullshit. You don't
No,
feel the
no, no.
urge.
No.
No. Because for a lot of people this is bullshit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I won't force it down their throat.
No.
It's only when someone is really interested and really makes an effort on his own part to get this story straight, that an Advaita teacher will give answer to questions and will give directions and pointers and so on.
Yeah.
But not if someone is not interested or wants something else.
Yeah.
It happens. People come to satsang with me, and then what they really want is a little bit nicer life or so. Well, that's fine. Only then
at the wrong place.
Then you're in the wrong place. And in Dutch we say even goede vrienden.
Yeah.
I don't know the English translation, but there's no harm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that.
When people want to get in touch with you, Jan, there's a website.
There's a website, jankoeren.nl.
Yeah, and maybe for English listeners or viewers, Jan is JANKOEHOORN.
Yeah, and there's a Facebook group, a group on Facebook, same name, Jan Koolhoorn. If you search me on Facebook, you can find me. And on the forum, you can ask questions, and they can be in English. Until now, it has been